Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans and you're watching the John Cedars channel from the bunker. And in this video, we absolutely must return to the topic of hate speech. Many of you will recall from part 1 of this series that my former religion, Jehovah's Witnesses, officially accused me of hate speech or tried to use hate speech as a pretext for having me thrown out of IICSA, the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse in England and Wales. They tried to get me thrown out as a core participant. In part 1 of this series, I discuss the reasons why this has happened, all the background, etc. It's all rather complicated, and rather than repeat everything, if you're confused as to how this accusation of hate speech has arisen, go and watch part 1. At the time I made part 1, I didn't have the documents to hand that were referenced in CCJW's August 28th letter. It was mentioned that there was a letter dated February 4th requesting that I be removed as a core participant, and it was also mentioned that there was an 8-page attachment, or dossier as I like to call it, outlining the various examples of hate speech that Watchtower was using to make their case against me. And in part 1, I didn't have those documents to hand. I think it was the next day or a day or two later that IICSA very kindly gave me the documents, but I was under strict orders not to talk about them, even though my name was being defamed or libelled by this accusation of hate speech. I was still under a confidentiality undertaking, a very serious undertaking. So rather than immediately jump on YouTube and show the documents, I decided to play it by the book. I instructed my lawyer, Richard Scorer, wonderful man, very brilliant lawyer. He pursued IICSA on my behalf and made some arguments as to basically the fact that I should be able to clear my name. If my name is publicly defamed in a document that is available on IICSA's website, the August 28th CCJW letter, I should have the opportunity to clear my name. It's taken a few days, but IICSA has agreed to this argument and they have waived my confidentiality undertaking as respects these documents. So there are 3 documents in total. There is the February 4th letter here from CCJW. There is the reply to this letter from IICSA, and there is, hold on, I'm mindful of the fact that this is a HD video, and there is the dossier, the 8-page dossier of examples of hate speech. Now listen, here's how I'm going to do this. There's so much here to talk about. The dossier is, again, 8 pages split into 5 sections, each with their own heading. So what I'm going to do is this video will be all about the letters themselves. So the February 4th CCJW letter and the February 7th reply from IICSA. And what I'm going to do is, in the next videos in this series, I'm going to go through systematically these examples which amount to accusations against me. I'm not being coy here. I'm not doing this just to stretch things out and just to keep people coming to my channel. This is actually quite serious because even though I, again, consider it quite a compliment for an organisation like Jehovah's Witnesses that repeatedly spews hate at everyone basically who doesn't see things the way they do, even though I see it as quite a compliment that they would single me out with this preposterous accusation, it does still hurt, actually, to have my name attached to something like hatred. I am absolutely not about hatred. And what I want to do is once and for all time set the record straight. If I just release the documents now, then what it does is it gives people the opportunity to comment on them, which is fine. But then I'm having to play catch up to give my version of events. I want to be able to do things at my own pace and answer these accusations properly by actually showing as much context as possible. I could just breeze through them as quickly as possible. I want to show the footage that the legal department has actually watched and show how they've misquoted it, if that makes sense. I want to do this properly because my name and reputation is involved. I'm not just being coy in spreading this out over 7 parts, which is what I'm going to do. Now let's quickly discuss what these parts will be, or what they will be called. Part 1 we've already had. That was where I explained the whole Ivor Frank fiasco. This is part 2, permission granted. Hopefully the title doesn't require too much explanation. Part 3 will be called the Holocaust. Let me show you the headings from the dossier just to explain why I'm calling them what I'm calling them. So Part 3, the Holocaust, is based on Part 1 of the dossier, which involves statements downplaying the Holocaust and other acts of persecution, vehement and sweeping statements against a religious group. That's right, my former religion has effectively accused me of being a Holocaust denier. You couldn't make this up, could you? So yes, that's going to be part 3 of this series. Part 4, titled Sweeping and Vehement, is based on part 2 of the dossier. Other examples of sweeping and vehement attacks on Jehovah's Witnesses, attacks against the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, and then part B, attacks against all Jehovah's Witnesses, including parents. So that's sweeping and vehement. Part 5 of this series will be about part 3 of the dossier, minimizing other gross acts of state persecution. And I've called it What About Russia? Because as you can guess, it's basically all about Russia, and they basically completely ignore the fact that I have been a vocal critic of Russia's persecution of Jehovah's Witnesses on this channel and even on BBC World Service Radio. So there you go. This is, again, the depths of deceit that we're dealing with in these documents. So anyway, part 6, criminal accusations, sweeping statements accusing Jehovah's Witnesses of serious crimes. And then finally, part 7, they try and get me thrown out from the inquiry, from IICSA, at least in part on account of my atheism. Apparently, I'm not allowed to be a core participant to IICSA and a vocal atheist. Isn't that interesting? So that's based on part 5 of the document, profane and offensive statements about God, Jesus, and the Bible. So that's what we're in for in the series ahead. But as I mentioned, in this particular part of the series, we're dealing with the letters. So here again is the February 4th CCJW letter. I will have both this and the IICSA letter available for download in the links below so that you can read it yourself and draw your own conclusions. I'm just going to read it and give my reaction. So, February 4th, reapplication to remove Lloyd Evans as core participant from protection in religious organisations and settings investigation. Dear Professor J, we are writing to bring a serious matter to your attention, which in our view should result in an order revoking the core participant status of Mr. Lloyd Evans. On July 5th, 2019, you made a provisional ruling to refuse Mr. Evans's core participant status. On receiving further submissions from his legal representative, Mr. Richard Scorer, on August 7th, 2019, you decided to grant Mr. Evans core participant status based, inter alia, on the assertion by Mr. Evans that he is a former member and elder of the Jehovah's Witnesses and is now a prominent campaigner, advocate, writer, documentary maker, and activist who works with and supports former Jehovah's Witnesses, including those who have experienced child sexual abuse within the organisation. The CCJW has not been provided with a copy of Mr. Evans's application for core participant status. Oh dear, my former religion wasn't allowed to give their opinion on whether I could be a core participant in this hearing. By the way, I wasn't given CCJW's application to be a core participant. I wasn't involved in any way in their selection. You don't see me moaning about it. They just want control over everything. It appears that Mr. Evans did not disclose to the inquiry that he was an elder for less than 1 year in 2008, and to our knowledge did not deal with any matter that involved safeguarding issues. He apparently stopped attending the religious services of Jehovah's Witnesses shortly thereafter. This is interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, I've been completely open with everybody about the fact that I was an elder for a year, not less than 1 year. It was, I forget exactly how many days or weeks it was, but the way I recall it, I was appointed in April 2008, and I stood down around about April 2009. So less than 1 year, kind of splitting hairs, kind of anal. As for this not disclosing to the inquiry, first of all, I did disclose it to the inquiry in my statement to the inquiry, which it seems CCJW hadn't read or hadn't been shown when they wrote this letter. I'd also written about it in a book. I'd been perfectly open with everybody about how long I was an elder for. It wasn't this secret that I was keeping. It's almost like the legal department have been in touch with the service department, and the service department have given my records, which I don't have, by the way, showing that I was an elder for a year, or as they put it, less than a year. And the legal department has said, oh, we can use this against him. He's being deceitful about how long he was an elder for. No, I've literally put it in a book that anyone can read. So that was weird. They say I did not deal with any matter that involved safeguarding issues. Again, I was perfectly open about that in my statement to IICSA, and I've been open about it whenever I've spoken about my time as an elder. He apparently stops attending the religious services of Jehovah's Witnesses shortly thereafter. That is a lie. That's not true. So I stood down as an elder again, around about April 2008. I don't have the exact date, unfortunately. It was around about then. I continued to attend meetings. I've checked this because it's in my book. I continued to attend meetings at the Kingdom Hall for 2 years after standing down as an elder. They've lied to IICSA about me stopping attending meetings shortly thereafter. That's just a lie. As such, he does not have any personal knowledge of the current safeguarding practice and procedure of Jehovah's Witnesses. Notice how they've put personal knowledge. Apparently, I need to have been personally involved in a case of child sex abuse as an elder if I'm going to be able to speak about it. That's their logic. His only current experience with Jehovah's Witnesses is reading their religious publications and watching their religious videos. Actually, it's following the lawsuits and Watchtower's various attempts to cover up child sex abuse and perpetuate their harmful policies. Those are the sorts of things I've been examining and reading up on, not just your publications and your videos. If I was going to base my knowledge of child sex abuse in the organisation purely on what has been published on jw.org or purely on what's been mentioned in the videos, I would know nothing. I would essentially be like an ordinary Jehovah's Witness. That's how they're trying to portray me, as someone who's ignorant, as someone who can't know anything unless I've been an elder and an elder who has been involved in handling child sex abuse. Absolutely extraordinary. Of more serious concern, it appears that Mr. Evans did not disclose to the inquiry the materials he has published about Jehovah's Witnesses. I didn't give the inquiry my YouTube channel and the hundreds of videos I have ever uploaded. How appalling of me. We have now reviewed Mr. Evans's video statements on his YouTube channel and his public statements in his Twitter account, both of which he widely advertises. Shame on you, Lloyd Evans, for widely advertising your YouTube account. That material is grossly defamatory of the entire religious community of Jehovah's Witnesses. No. I criticise the leadership of Jehovah's Witnesses. Let's not go talking about me being defamatory of every single Jehovah's Witness. My comments have always been directed at the leadership, as we're going to see in the videos that follow, and includes comments that constitute hate speech against Jehovah's Witnesses. See pages 1 to 8 of the attached. Oh, we will, CCJW, we will. His speech is shocking. That sounds like a Bible verse. His speech is shocking and grossly offensive to all Christians, not only Jehovah's Witnesses. See page 9 of the attached. That's where they try to play the atheism card and effectively encourage IICSA to discriminate against me based on my atheism. Apparently, if you're an atheist, you need to keep quiet entirely about your views and never say anything critical about Christianity in particular, or you don't get to be a core participant for IICSA. They were banking on IICSA being discriminatory against me on account of my atheism. Isn't that interesting? The English courts and the European Court of Human Rights, Jehovah's Witnesses, all about human rights, apart from the human rights of apostates and former witnesses, who we will shun, we will weaponize their families against them in breach of their human rights under Article 9 of the European Convention on Human Rights and Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, don't talk to me, CCJW, because I know you're watching this, by the way. Don't you dare talk to me about human rights. You are in no position to be lecturing anyone on human rights. The English courts and the European Court of Human Rights have repeatedly denounced hate speech, which includes, inter alia, statements that trivialise or downplay the Holocaust, vehement and sweeping statements attacking or casting in a negative light entire ethnic, religious, or other groups, and statements which constitute a general vehement attack against a religious group, linking the group as a whole with alleged criminal acts. Profane and gratuitously offensive statements, including those in regards to objects of veneration, and 4, statements accusing a religion as a whole of harbouring or welcoming child abusers, or which accuse their religious leaders without evidence of paedophilic tendencies. So what they're doing here is they're spelling out what constitutes hate speech, and these various numbers will form the basis of their 8-page dossier. The attached document provides specific examples of Mr. Evans's hate speech which fall into each of the above categories. While these examples are by no means exhaustive, we could carry on. Trust us, IICSA. We've got lots on this guy. They illustrate and confirm, do they now, that Mr. Evans continues to broadcast his hate speech even after receiving core participant status from the inquiry. The Grand Chamber of the European Court of Human Rights warned in Actually, I'm not going to read that. That's a bit boring. Read it yourself. It's in the downloads. We invite the inquiry to examine Mr. Evans's public statements as set out in the attached document, and in the light therefore to re-examine whether he merits core participant status. Mr. Evans's participation in the inquiry will inevitably give an air of credibility to his hate speech. Had Mr. Evans and his legal representative disclosed that information to the inquiry, I should have disclosed to the inquiry that I am a spewer of hate speech. That's what I should have done. I should have said to IICSA, please can I be a core participant? By the way, I do like to hate on people. And I do like to encourage hatred and violence towards religious minorities. That's kind of my thing. I'll make an excellent core participant. That's apparently what I should have done in CCJW's view. Had Mr. Evans and his legal representative disclosed that information to the inquiry, we are confident it would have led to the rejection of his application. We submit that his participation in this inquiry is highly inappropriate, given his extreme views and hate speech towards Jehovah's Witnesses and Christianity as a whole. There you go, playing the atheism card again. For the above reasons, we respectfully submit that Mr. Evans's core participant status should be immediately revoked. And that's the letter. Now, IICSA replied on February 7th, and I will go through their letter. Thank you for your letter, dated 4th of February 2020. The Chair has considered the information which you have brought to our attention carefully, and I write on her instructions. They wrote their letter to Professor J, even though they should have written to IICSA, and IICSA are kind of politely saying, you should have written to us. The Chair is instructing us to send this letter back. Mr. Evans was granted core participant status on 7th of August 2019 The reasons included, but were not limited to, Mr. Evans's former role as an elder within the CCJW. Doesn't matter that it was a year. It doesn't matter. The point is, I know something about what it means to be an elder. The chair noted that Mr. Evans was a former member and elder, a prominent campaigner, advocate, writer, documentary maker and activist who works with and supports former Jehovah's Witnesses, including those who have experienced child sexual abuse within the organisation, and the only full-time ex-Jehovah's Witness advocate in the world who has researched and written extensively about the organisation and its response to child sexual abuse. I'm glad they pointed this out. This, for me, seems a little bit like IICSA saying, what are you expecting? You know, are you expecting us to just speak to people who are favourable to the religion? Are you expecting us to just consult you if we're carrying out an objective investigation into child sex abuse among Jehovah's Witnesses? Are you seriously suggesting that we should just take your word for it and not consult people who have made it their business to advocate for survivors and also to pursue developments within this religion as their job? That really, I think, was going in my favour, the fact that it's literally a full-time job, thanks to my hundreds of patrons, for me to follow this religion. Look, I wasn't the only ex-Jehovah's Witness there. You don't have to be a full-time activist, clearly, to know something about what's happening in this religion. But nonetheless, the fact that I am a full-time ex-Jehovah's Witness advocate, that actually helped me to fulfill the criteria for a core participant status, because a core participant needs to, what's the wording? They need to have an interest, that's it, in the religion. It's my interest because it's my job, and that's what IICSA's saying here. The inquiry understands your concern about some of the material which has been published on Mr. Evans's YouTube channel, and I am grateful to you for bringing it to our attention. However, the inquiry is not in a position to police the activities of core participants outside its proceedings. At the preliminary hearing on 14th of January 2020, both counsel to the inquiry and the chair reminded core participants of the need for all those involved in the inquiry to ensure that their language remains civil and respectful at all times in its proceedings. The chair repeated the warning she had given in the Westminster investigation in February 2018 that all core participants should choose their words with care and, of course, avoid the unnecessary use of language or statements which are either offensive or inflammatory. This will apply equally to the evidence to be given by any submissions or evidence given during the forthcoming public hearings. I can confirm that Mr. Evans has made a statement to the inquiry which will be disclosed to core participants shortly, and that it complies with this warning. In other words, you may not have seen his initial statement yet, but we have, and we're telling you that we're not seeing hate speech in it. What we're seeing is quite civil, measured language when discussing Jehovah's Witnesses or Mr. Evans's former religion. So, again, very kind of clear and direct. The chair is not minded to revoke Mr. Evans's core participant status and considers in her discretion that he continues to fulfill the criteria in Rule 5, 2A and B as having a significant interest. That's the one. A significant interest in the matters the inquiry is considering and can play a significant role in the issues under investigation. So that was Martin Smith, solicitor to the inquiry, replying to this February 4th diatribe from CCJW, which was unsuccessful in trying to get me thrown out of IICSA as a core participant. So much more to talk about, and we will go through all of the ins and outs of the dossier in parts 3 to 7 of this series. I did originally hope to do it in just 2 parts. Just no way can I do it justice. And again, I hope you understand, if I do this at my own pace, it won't necessarily all go out in the next week or so. It might even take me a couple of months to go through everything. But I want these videos to stand as my answer once and for all time for posterity, so that if people stumble on this document or this August 28th letter from CCJW and they do some digging and try to find out more about this guy that was accused of hate speech, they will find on YouTube a full and thorough and comprehensive rebuttal of all of the accusations contained in that vile document that CCJW sent to IICSA. So much to go through, but we'll get there eventually. I hope you are able to bear with me. All that remains is to, as usual, say that I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to the John Cedars channel for more such videos, and as always, thank you for watching.